Every Boxing Day for 75 years straight, the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race has been a regular on the Australian summer sporting landscape. But in 2020, the race was abandoned a week from the starter's gun.
There's been another major casualty of the pandemic. The 76th Sydney Hobart race has been cancelled for the first time in its history.
The impact of COVID-19 that has disrupted sporting events around the globe for so much of the year has added the great race to its list.
Now, as the world returns to normal, one of the world's greatest ocean races is back.
And there they go, they're underway.
Go there, drop them or not? Make it a really good tack, all right? One, tacking over.
It's all happening down at water level.
Hey, what are you doing?
630 nautical miles, 1,100 kilometres from the heart of Sydney to the Derwent River in Hobart. Welcome to the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race.
It is the Great Race South. Welcome everyone to Seven's coverage of the Rolex Sydney Hobart, a great Boxing Day tradition. And it started very early this morning. There have been preparations underway all morning and a lot happening at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, where most of the yachts are pulling out from this morning. Our Amber Laidler has been down there for all the action.
Well, normally the marina here at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia would be bustling with members of the public coming down to catch a glimpse of the cruise and bid them farewell before they set sail on that gruelling 628 nautical mile journey to Hobart. Today it has been much quieter. The public locked out due to COVID protocols. We've spoken to a number of the crews here today who were still waiting for their PCR test results at 2 and 5 o'clock this morning. Nonetheless, though, everybody, regardless of whether those results are back, will be allowed to set sail. And after last year's cancellation, everyone is just thrilled to finally be taking part in what will be the 76th running of the Sydney Hobart.
Yeah, well, just like everywhere else, COVID has knocked around this fleet. Joining me is a man who's done 31 of these Sydney Hobart races, Peter Shipway. Shippers, it has been tough for the crews this year getting set, but the exciting thing now is they're ready to go.
It's been a long 2-year wait, and as you said, a lot of excitement around the fleet today. They're going to have a very quick exit down the harbour in this southerly breeze. The breeze is going to get stronger as the day goes on, so it's going to be a good old thump tonight for all the fleet.
Hey, tell me about the race down the harbour. It's sort of the unofficial part of the race, but who'll be first out of the harbour, do you think? Who's quick?
Well, I think it'll be the 3 Super Maxis will get there, 1, 2, 3. What the order is, I don't really know, but perhaps Law Connect perhaps could be first out. Blackjack and Scallywag will be right on, hot on her heels, but it's up for grabs.
Oh, we love it. Can't wait to get things started. Let's head across the water now to a man who's an America's Cup legend, has won this race before, Jimmy Spittle. Jimmy, what are you seeing down there?
Well, g'day Mark, g'day Pete, and to everyone at home for the start of this year's Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. Quite different conditions than what we're used to having. That beautiful nor'east sea breeze we all had yesterday for Christmas is gone and replaced with a building southeasterly. Now, this is going to change a few things. The first one, instead of the boats working their way out the harbour to the heads, we're going to get a much faster ride. It's going to be a direct route. We're going to see the spinnakers, those big downwind sails. As Pete mentioned earlier, about 4.5 minutes is the record set by Comanche, which I was fortunate enough to be on board. But let's see if any one of those 3 Super Maxis can top that record. When they get to the heads and make the turn right, they will be met with the harsh reality of what will be the next 24 to 48 hours of a freshening and building southeasterly.
Jimmy Spittle, great to have you with us. Let's have a look at the map on the way south. Shippers?
Yes, 4 different starting lines. They turn at different marks at the heads to equalise the difference between the starting lines. Then down the coast of New South Wales, they get a hard slog there tonight. Bass Strait's going to be tricky. The east coast of Tasmania is going to be tricky. Storm Bay is going to be tricky. It's going to be a very, very hard race to win. Storm Bay and then the Derwent River finish in Castray Esplanade in Hobart. It's a lot to play for in these conditions. And who will win, I would like to say at this early stage, I think on handicap it will favour the smaller boats.
We've got you covered all over the harbour at the moment. That's the view from up above in the chopper. Of course, we have cameras on URM and on Law Connect. You'll be on board with them. A beautiful view of the Sydney Opera House. The start line is there for you to take a look at, and the general view of Sydney Harbour. But it is quite a great scene. There's a lot of excitement on the harbour. Of course, Pete, we didn't get a race away last year due to COVID, but there is that sense of expectation and excitement about the race getting going this year.
Yes, well, there's Scallywag, one of the three Super Maxis, right in line for line honours. She's David Witts, the skipper, and 89 boats will hit the starting line, and 17 of those will be the new two-handed class. First time ever in the Hobart race that the two-handers will be racing. It's been very big in Europe, and it's now filtered its way down to Australia. So 17 brave souls in a two-hander. It'll be a tough night for them.
It looks good, Scallywag, doesn't it? A smart-looking boat.
Yeah, well,
great history.
Well, she's the former Ragamuffin, of course. Third in 2014, second in 2015. And here's Blackjack, one of the other Super Maxis, racing under the Yacht Club of Monaco flag. Line honours in 2009 as Alfa Romeo, fifth to finish in 2019, and then second behind Wild Oats in 2018. A very, very good crew. Broke its mast in the Brisbane to Gladstone race and has just been fighting against time to get the new mast in and tuned, so she hasn't really done any racing since Easter time. And here's the other big one, Law Connect. She has had a lot of names in her history. She started life as Speedboat, then Rambler, Perpetual Loyal and Info Track. She won line honours as Perpetual Loyal in 2016. A massive 6.5 metre bowsprit has been added this year, and she's just a real favourite, I think, in these heavy conditions. In the next 24 hours, she will really show how good she is in these tough night tonight and also tomorrow.
Yeah, and the navigator Brad Kellett doing his 29th Hobart race. A bit of a milestone.
Christian Beck, the owner, he keen to be first out, but here's the other boat that we're on board, URM. Very good chance of handicap honours, owned by Anthony Johnson.
Not yet. Tell Nick, not yet.
The famous sailor in the red sleeves who we're just having a look at there, just underneath the mast.
Yes, Steve Jarvin, the man they call Mothballs. He's won this race 14 times on line honours, 2 handicap wins, and he's on his 32nd trip to Hobart. And that's his son also racing, Sevi Jarvin, an 18-foot skiff champion. And this boat has a lot of 18-foot skiff sailors on board. The young voice we can hear there is Marcus Ashley Jones. He'll be at the helm. The navigator, Yvette Heritage, another 18-foot skiff sailor. And then we've got boys like Peter Harris on board, and a real strong crew. Here's a boat that's highly favoured, Guelo, second 2 years ago to Ichiban. Another strong crew. Billy Merrington holds that crew together. And they will give Ichiban a really good run for their race. And here's the defending champion and probably the race favourite, Ichiban. But it looks to me at the moment the weather really won't favour these TP52s. I think the smaller boats could be more advantaged by the conditions they're going to get across Bass Strait and down the east coast of Tasmania. But boy, this boat is going for a third overall victory and could easily happen. Here's No Limit. She has already placed in this race. She was, as Voodoo, she was third in 2018. And aboard No Limit is Tony Ellis in his record-breaking 53rd trip to Hobart.
It's incredible.
She was 7th in 2019. 59 is Denali, another TP52, Damien Parks. This boat, formerly Matador from the United States. Parks was on Vengeance when they won line honours in 1983. She will probably not push the TP52s right to the limit. She's been a little bit off the pace in lead-up races. Unfortunately had to retire from the Cabbage Tree Island yacht race.
Yeah, Damien Parks, the skipper, doing his 33rd Hobart, and Tony Kirby's on board for a 36th Hobart. Experienced crew. Back with No Limit.
Very strong crew there. Barney Walker, the sailing master. He's a double winner of the Hobart race. Julian Freeman, also a Hobart winner, on board.
And we're back on board with Law Connect, where we have a camera on board. We'll just eavesdrop into some of the conversation.
There's nowhere for us to go. We can't get, you know, we're really searching for a hole to get down to the line.
I mean, you know, you're going to have someone who comes basically on starboard
dead downwind, going slow, aiming right at the pin, and they're going to be pretty strong. You know, they may have a bit of zigzag.
So a bit of strategy there in the start.
And the two voices you heard, Chris Nicholson, one of Australia's great sailors, double Olympian. He'll be the tactician aboard Law Connect. And the other voice was Tony Mutter, top New Zealand sailor, who will be at the helm.
We're taking a look at Quest now, skippered by Craig Neal, expected to be extremely competitive in this race. Craig's saying the first 24 hours really a survival race, and that's the case, shippers, for most boats.
Yes, she's a double winner. She won in 2008 and again in 2015 as balanced. She was third in 2019, second in 2017. She's got an incredible record in this race. The highly experienced Michael Green is the sailing master. She will love these tough conditions this afternoon. And here's URM. We're back on board URM. That's Marcus Ashley Jones, the voice you can hear.
Just a good chance too from above, shippers, to have a look at the different roles on deck. Everybody has a job on deck, and there are no passengers on these races south.
No, Anthony Johnson, the owner, he's got his two brothers aboard, Dave and Nick. So they'll have a good time tonight.
So the two-handers for the first time joining this race south. So that is just two crew members on board, and they're expected to take maybe 3 or 4 days to get south. A big challenge for them. There are 17 of them in the field, but a big race coming up for the two-handers.
Steering Speedwell south towards Hobart and history.
Can you give the bow a shove out, please?
Wendy Tuck and Campbell Geeves competing in the race's first two-handed division. Despite the boat's name, they'll be focusing on sailing smart, saying their strength lies in strategy rather than speed.
We'll be concentrating more on tactics. That's how we're going to do well in this race.
For most, this is more than a year in the making, with many set to contest the inaugural two-handed trophy last December before the race was cancelled due to COVID. Also finally setting sail, Hobart veteran Michael Bell.
I've done 12 Sydney Hobarts, usually with mates and other people that I know. This one will be a little bit different.
This time competing on Kiamai with son Matt, the sailor and the student. This Matt's first Sydney Hobart.
A couple of years ago we were on the harbour watching the start of a race on a boat there, and I remember that was a massive buzz and really high adrenaline, so no doubt being on one of the actual race boats will be a whole nother level.
He isn't the only first-timer preparing to take in the start of the race from a different seat.
Normally I'm on board a vessel, so one of the maritime vessels inside the exclusion zone, right at the front of the fleet, looking back at them as they charge up the harbour.
For the past 13 years, Drew Jones of New South Wales Maritime has coordinated the race. This year he'll compete aboard Sydney 36 cruiser Saltshaker alongside Peter Frankie.
Drew suggested it this time last year, and I said, no, I'd never do that. You got rocks in your head.
His nickname is Cranky Frankie, but that doesn't bother me.
This dynamic duo also taking on the tightly contested two-handed field. All crews promising they're just as powerful as the major players and warning they shouldn't be underestimated.
No. Yeah, not here for a haircut.
Not here for a haircut, that's for sure.
We're here to give it a nudge.
And Speedwell co-captain Wendy Tuck joins us now. Wendy, the 2018 Australian Female Sailor of the Year. Wendy, how are you feeling at this start line? Everything in place, ready to go?
Yeah, we're pretty set up now. I think we're feeling good. Just want to get over that start line, not too early, of course, and get on with the job now. It's been a long time coming, as I said earlier.
Wendy, your 14th Hobart experience. What's the biggest thing on your mind sailing this in a two-handed crew?
Biggest thing on my mind at the moment is to be aware of our tiredness and looking after each other. You know, we've really got to watch each other's sleep patterns and everything, and making sure we're both staying on top of our game. Because once you get too tired, you start making silly mistakes and maybe not changing things as much as you should do. So I think watching out for each other is our big thing.
And Wendy, what do you make of the weather forecast?
Oh, look, it's not going to be pleasant for the first few days for us upwind, but that's good. It's going to suit us, I think. It's going to make us sail for our handicap, so it's going to be quite good. Then it's going to be that challenging getting across Bass Strait. We might see going into Bass Strait to get favourable winds and have a bit of downwind sailing, hopefully.
And Wendy, when do you expect to hit Hobart?
Oh, that's $1 million question, isn't it? Hopefully on the 30th. Hope got to be there by the 31st of July. Otherwise, can't have even see. We've got no alcohol on board.
Hey, listen, Wendy, great to chat to you. Wish you all the very best. There you see a beautiful view of Sydney Harbour. We're back with more from the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Welcome back. We're about 11 minutes away from the start of the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. That is a beautiful view over Sydney Harbour, the world's most beautiful harbour. Out through the heads to your right-hand side, you see on both sides of the official course, the spectator fleet moving into position, and Peter Shipway. That is one of the great signs, the man who's been in this race 31 times. That warms the heart, doesn't it?
It certainly does. There's 4 separate starting lines, as we mentioned earlier. 18 boats on the front line. They're the bigger boats. 24 on the second line. 30 boats on the third line, and all the double-handers are starting on the back line or the fourth line. The 10-minute gun, the warning signal to be fired by Mary Holly, a veteran of 16 Hobart races, and she will get the fleet underway with their warning signal. And the breeze is nice and strong at the moment, not super strong, but it'll be still a very quick exit down the harbour.
Yeah, the 10-minute gun important. Not only just brings the crews to attention. I know Ed Saltis, a veteran of many Sydney Hobarts on Midnight Rambler, saying that the 10-minute gun just really, that brings him on edge. He loves the rush of that.
And you mentioned Midnight Rambler. I think she stands a very, very good chance of overall honours, given this weather forecast. It's tricky the second half of the race, and it's certainly going to be a race that I think boats will have to transition very carefully to get from the southerly breeze down to the breeze off the coast of Tasmania.
All right, here we go. Almost 10 minutes away. Starting cannons. 10-minute cannon about to go. There it is. 10 minutes now until the start of the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart.
Have fun, boys and
you
girls.
can just hear the chat on board there. Everything steps up. There's Maritimo.
From Queensland, a very big chance, this boat. No Queensland yacht has ever won this race. Michael Spees, the skipper. That's him in the white hat at the back. This is his 44th Sydney Hobart race. A very strong crew. The boats come out from America, owned by Barry Cotter from the famous boat building firm Maritimo. She will be very, very hard to beat. There's Zen, winner of the recent Cabbage Tree Island race. Another TP52. Gordon Kettleby's charge. She will keep the other TP52s very, very honest. And Mark, I think it's time to give a big shout out to all our health workers who've done such a marvellous job to get all these crews tested and out on the race course. A special mention of Belinda, who I know did such a wonderful job to get the sailors tested and racing here today.
It was a big thing, and we should point out that, of course, going to Hobart and Tasmania, they've got to have a negative result 72 hours before. Now, that caught out some crews who, unfortunately, some crew members tested positive, which, in the case of Willow, just knocked the whole boat out of this race. So we have lost a handful of boats based on those positive tests. And some results still to come in for these crews who are about to start the race. Hopefully they'll get them very soon, but you can just see their Law Connect just looks majestic back behind the start line at the moment.
Interesting. There's a scallywag with an S on a sail with a reef and a mainsail already. There's Quest again. Seen her earlier, the double winner. And the boats now have just got to be on their allocated starting line. They can't go back into other starting lines. They've asked the fleet to keep close as they can to their respective starting lines. The main first starting line we're looking at now is between Nielsen Park and Clifton Gardens. Clifton Gardens up to the top of the screen, Nielsen Park to the eastern side, and that'll be the number one starting line where all the Super Maxis will be on that line. And coming back now, we're going back to the other starting lines, and they go right back towards Bradley's Head where the fourth line is, and all the little two-handers.
83 yachts in all, and this is an incredible spectacle on Sydney Harbour. You see the spectator fleet on both sides of the course. As the lead yachts move up, those boats will move with the fleet, and they just create an incredible image. But on top of that, there are people lining the edges of Sydney Harbour. I know estimates in recent years say there's 1 million people turn out to watch the Rolex Sydney Hobart start. So it is a great international event, and on top of that, the many people who are watching around the world tuned in to see this incredible race begin. No doubt one of the world's great ocean races, and always draws a big international field. I think we've got 3 international yachts this year, which, due to the current conditions, is down a little bit on normal, but great to have them here. And another beautiful shot as you look back through Sydney Harbour. As we said, one of the world's great harbours.
Well, the nerves will be starting to kick in now, I think, as the fleet weave their way on different starting lines, and you've just got to make sure there's no errors here. You've got to keep a very vigilant lookout. Here we go aboard URM.
Spinnaker, mid-line, get down. Like we've already fucked up by not having a zero. That's the problem. You can't compete against a zero with a shoot. They'll always sail higher. Yeah.
That's the man they call mothballs there in the red sleeves, Steve Jarman. His son there on the left, Sevi Jarman, Marcus Ashley Jones at the helm, and Event Heritage in the foreground. She's the navigator. And here we are on board Law Connect. Tony Mutter at the helm. What a record he has in ocean racing. 6 Hobarts for 2 line honours wins, 6 round-the-world races for 2 victories.
And if you're a regular watch, you'll remember that same boat as Perpetual Loyal, and most recently his InfoTrack as well, Christian Beck's entry. He's been a great competitor in this race.
There's the Alive, a former winner. And on board, one of the helmsmen is Tommy Spithill, the brother of James Spithill. So I'm sure Jimmy's given Tommy a bit of advice, but probably bunker down tonight, stay safe. But she is a very good chance out of Tasmania. She won the race in 2018. Stand by for the 5-minute gun.
Great to hear some of the advice given to the first timers from the experienced skippers, and just the words of, look, just enjoy the experience. You know, it's a big thing. Often the crews and first timers, they get so wrapped up in getting it right, but the experienced skipper's saying just sit back and enjoy it and have the experience.
The preparatory signal, or the 5-minute gun, to be fired by Gail Harlan.
What?
Five minutes to go.
Okay, well, Gail has sailed in 22 Hobart races, and she was on the winning boat in 2003. So a big thrill for both Gail and Mary, and the start gun will be fired by Bruce Gould, who won the race in 1970 aboard Pasha. He was aboard Vengeance for its double victory in 1987 for line and handicap honours, 40 Sydney Hobart races, and one of the most popular members of the ocean racing fraternity. So it's a big honour for Brucey Gould to fire the starting gun as we watch Maritimo just getting organised for the start.
All right, let's go down to the water level now and join America's Cup legend, Sail GP champion, and of course winner of this race as well, Jimmy Spithill.
Yeah, g'day guys. Yeah, we're starting to see this breeze build up probably about 15 to 20 knots right now. Biggest decision for these crews right now, where will they start on the start line? Will they start up the top, up on the eastern side, or will they opt to go for the lower end of the start line down to the east there? The other thing they have to navigate on the way out to the heads is the Sound Pigs Reef, so it's going to be fascinating to see what tactical choice these crews make.
Hey, Jimmy Barrett, as they're getting in a position, you're getting a feel for who's where. Who's in a good position for the start, do you think? Who's read this right?
Well, I think we're not going to know yet until around that 2-minute mark, 1 to 2 minute mark on the final approach. Because of the angle of the breeze that the boats are going to sail to head down to the heads, it's going to happen very, very fast. So, yeah, look for in that last minute or so to see where the positioning is. I'm thinking some of these maxis will go for the bottom end of the line.
All right, Jimmy, if you're out there skippering Comanche again, what would you be doing right now? Where would you be?
Well, definitely now you're starting to think, have a look at that breeze condition. You're starting to talk to the guys on board. What will be the timing to unfurl those huge Code Zero sails you see on these boats? But the most important thing is not to be early for this start, because if you break the start, the race committee don't tell you until 5 minutes after. And the last thing you want to do 5 minutes later on is sail back and restart the race.
All right, Jimmy Spithill down on the water level for us for the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Such an important thing too, Pete, that we... thanks, Jimmy. Great to see you. And, Pete, that we saw Wild Oats go through something like that a couple of years ago. You don't want to get anything wrong in this getting out of the harbour. It's important.
There's Whisper, highly fancied David Griffith's boat. He's put a lot of effort into this. They put a new keel. They've shaped the keel, they've repositioned the keel, they've got a new inventory of sails, very strong crew. Michael Coxon, the sailing master. So we've got just over 2 minutes to go.
It's an amazing sight, isn't it? As this 86 yacht fleet gets itself into position for the start. As we mentioned earlier, 4 start lines this year for the 4 different categories of the race. And the big Super Maxis up the front there, and the spectator fleet into position as well. And they will move off and follow this fleet, not only out through Sydney Heads, but also turning right as they head south and down towards Hobart. It's quite a sight. So standing by now, 1.5 minutes until the starting gun, and we get underway with the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. A great day in Sydney. There is a good breeze up at the moment. This will be, Shippers, one of the quickest starts we see today.
Yes, the record is 4 minutes and 35 seconds set by Comanche to the first turning mark in 2014. But looking at it, all the big boats are stacked up on the western side of the harbour. That'll give them a better angle of attack going down the harbour.
Yeah, I hear.
That's the top marker as we see there.
They're getting themselves into position, as you can see. Interesting, all sort of heading in the same spot at the moment, looking for the same position.
It's time on distance now. As Jimmy said, you don't want to be over because it's a long way back. There's no general recall. They can't call all the fleet back. So if you're over, you've got to wait 5 minutes, and they may radio you in, but they don't have to. So the onus is completely on the yachts to make sure they're not over. But here they come. The charge is starting now. Law Connect and Blackjack.
30 seconds.
Law Connect's got the pedal down. They've just got to time this perfectly. You can see the top mark there, just to the
20 seconds.
Top of the screen.
What do you want with Smuggler?
Hear the chaos on board. 10 seconds now.
Come on! Okay, where's to go?
Okay. Starting gun, and away they go, racing in the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. The great race south is on. 628 nautical miles to Hobart.
Bruce Gould says go, and they're away. Law Connect, top of the screen. Next to them is Blackjack, then Scallywag's got a very good start. Here's Law Connect. Look at that massive sail. Absolutely powering down the harbour now. There'll be 18 to 20 knots at boat speed. What a sight. There's the 4 start lines. What a magnificent sight. One of the great sights in Australian sport. One of the great sights in the world of yachting. And look at those maxis down the western side of the harbour, charging away in this breeze of southeasterly direction, probably 15 to 18 knots. And the Scallywag's just got his nose in front.
Yeah, wait. I got rolled. We just got to stay in the pressure up here.
David Witt, former 18-foot skiff sailor, knows this harbour very well.
Yeah, I think I'm very close.
Gives you a great idea of the intensity on board.
Yes, the colourful language, we can understand why, but see Scallywag, as I mentioned earlier, is a reef in their mainsail for when they get outside the heads. They've shortened down sail already. But look at these boats. They're off now in 18, 20 knots at boat speed.
That is good speed down the harbour too.
Here comes.
Dude, just calm down. We fucked up the start.
We're getting run over here.
Yeah, Law Connector's getting run over, as they're saying here. It's Blackjack trying to hang on to Scallywag, but it could easily be Scallywag that will lead them round this next. The first turning mark. There's the Western Channel pie light just disappearing, bottom of screen. So they're making very good progress down the harbour at the moment.
Okay, good pressure.
This is going to be a quick exit once again this year.
Oh, can we get below?
So what it means now with these big boats, Mark, the big thing is they've got to roll these reaching sails, code 0 sails up. It's not the easiest manoeuvre to do. They've got to roll them up and then get them down below, because once they go through the heads, they're on the breeze. These sails won't be any use at all.
They are flying down, and to give you an idea, dead ahead of them is Manly as to what they're heading towards, and then they'll make the first right turn.
Okay, from right to left, Scallywag, Blackjack, Law Connect, and Stefan.
Can we get to
Stefan Racing. That's Grant Warrington, a colourful character and a colourful boat. Warro has won the race before in his own boat.
Scallywag's broken away well. That is a handy little lead. Look at that spectator fleet joining them too.
And here comes Blackjack. It'll all be about manoeuvres now to this turning mark. Who can get the sails furled the nicest? Who's got the best jib on to go out to sea? You can see Stefan Racing just suffering a bit there. She's only an 80-footer, so she's giving away 20 feet to these monsters. But David Witt, he'll win the honours to the heads.
There we are, our fleet of 89 on their way out. They are just looking immaculate. Beautiful side, one of the best starts we've seen.
Just let Yvette do a job, please.
Bit of tension on URM. Yvette is the navigator. Here we are.
Spinning it 2 minutes after the start. That was a fucking joke.
Dual Olympian, Jason Waterhouse on board. Silver medalist at the 2016 games. Sevi Jarvan on the left, but there's Lady Bay, South Reef.
Coming to me. Coming up.
So Law Connect has worked up to windward of these other two, but I still think it'll be Scallywag that'll get to this first turning mark. Turning mark Victor first. Bottom right of frame, you can see that yellow mark. That's the turning mark for the big boats.
That's nice. Yeah, copy. Copy. Really good pressure coming here. We'll get
It's Brad Kellett in the foreground, the navigator on Law Connect. Bradshaw Kellett, young navigator from a very famous Australian yachting family. Okay, game on shortly. These sails have to be furled up.
Gee, what a sprint race between these three. Law Connect, Blackjack and Scallywag.
That's the first turning mark, just at the middle of screen, bottom there. That's the smaller boats will go to that mark.
And just beyond them, they're passing Middlehead now. That's Balmoral Beach just above them. Here's the first turning mark. This is going to be very interesting.
Not sure yet, but if we do jibe, we'll do it early, so you'll have a minute on starboard to set up.
Yeah. URM left of screen. They could probably have to jibe. They've gone so high with the spinnaker. They won't get down to this mark. They'll have to do 2 jibes and in. And now the furl is beginning on Scallywag. You can see that big headsail reaching sail being furled up. And there's the little jib that's now exposed, and that's what they'll go to windward with. So David Witt wins the honours to the heads, 5 minutes 15. No record there, but he wouldn't worry about that.
Okay, you've got a boundary coming up, Sevi. Copy that.
Okay, and they'll tilt the boat slightly to windward with their canting keel so that the big furling sail can fall down on the deck. You can see Blackjack coming in, tilting the boat to windward. Okay. Ooh, they've got to try and get that furling sail to windward of the jib. There's crew trying to race up there. They'll do the job. Oh, there's Blackjack.
Fluid board can go down.
They haven't furled properly on Blackjack. You can see that headsail still unfurled.
Yeah.
Not a tidy furl, but Law Connect have got it done well. Tidy Mudder at the helm of Law Connect. Chris Nicholson in the foreground. Highly experienced crew. They'll love this afternoon in these tough conditions. She was built for this. And you can see Blackjack, they've got to run away and get that sail furled.
Trimming on.
So caution was the best way there. Get it done early, get it down and tidy. See how much Blackjack's had to come to leeward. They still haven't furled that sail. And next around will be Stefan Racing, I think, the purple hull. Blackjack's still trying to get this sail furled. It's a slow furl. Mark Bradford, the skipper. Very, very experienced crew. Adam Beashel on board from the famous Beashel sailing family. Anthony Nossiter, Olympian. Will McCarthy, America's Cup skipper. No, crew member rather. I think he'd like to be a skipper, but he was a crew member. But they've just got it furled. You can see the jib still not trimmed in. So they're going to leeward a bit, and they'll lose some gauge on both Scallywag and Law Connect. They're now just getting into the breeze proper. You can see Scallywag well heeled. They've got to go to another turning mark out to sea. Turning mark Zulu. But they've got to get a skirt on that curve. So still Blackjack in a little bit of trouble. Okay, here the next group to the next turning mark, headed by Stefan Racing.
Let's get down to Jimmy Spittle.
Yeah, guys, we just saw Blackjack come down as they rounded the mark in second place. Had an issue on board, couldn't furl that big sail. We saw them unfurl for the start. and because of that, they ended up down into the spectator fleet, lost a lot of gauge on the other two, but really well done by David Witt. All the boats really hit the line at full speed, but he was able to get ahead and be first out the heads.
Yeah, great race out the heads. And there we're taking a look at Scallywag once again, picking up good pace now and heading out of Sydney Heads.
She looks nicely snug down with a reef in the mainsail. And they're still trying to get that furl sail down. You can still see it between the jib and the mainsail. Here's URM. She's lost a little ground because she's had to do a couple of jibes.
Drop it! Ping it!
Stay low, Marcus. Bring it in, cut it down to the front.
Yeah, I've got to come up. Get the tack!
Ooh, don't drop it in the water, boys. You're going to be in a bit of trouble. No, they'll recover this just. Left everything a bit late. They're a little untidy on the URM at the moment. That spinnaker goes over in the water and over the side. It will be fatal, but they've got done the job.
Ease the jib sheet, whizzer. Ease the...
Trevor, who's on the Trevor?
They just have not been comfortable from the very start, URM.
No, very untidy. A lot of letter boats get inside them at the turning mark, but Scallywag keeps on keeping on.
And doing it beautifully too. As we leave you for just a moment, stay right there. We'll be back with more from the Rolex Sydney Hobart. Welcome back to the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. An incredible start in the harbour. Scallywag leads them out from Law Connect. It has been a fantastic start. Great to see them flying up the harbour once again. Most of the fleet still inside Sydney Harbour. Remember, we've got 89 yachts in this race who are mostly making their way out, some with varying degrees of difficulty, shippers, at the moment.
Yes, we saw Denali there. She's got a paying off pennant. That's going to take a bit of work to get back on board. But there's Tony Mutter at the helm of Law Connect. They will be relishing these conditions. You see the crew already got their wet weather gear on, their sea boots on. It's going to be a big, solid punch tonight into this building southerly breeze. And there's that final turning mark, just coming out from behind Law Connect. They'll be hard on the wind now. They were reaching out between the two turning marks. Blackjack has got herself organised. She'll be third round, but she's given them a bit of a start. Now, this will be a good, solid test of who goes best to windward between Law Connect and Scallywag. Very good crew on Scallywag under David Witt, Albie Pratt, Larry Jamison, Luke Parkinson, Phil Harmer, all solid round-the-world sailors.
Back to no limit inside the harbour.
They're just at the first turning mark.
It's busy.
No limit. That's Celestial. Sam Haynes, he's been third in this race a few years ago in a different boat with the same name, Celestial. Ichiban pulling off a very tricky manoeuvre. They've got the job done there. So they've given a bit of a start to the other TP52s, but a long way to go. There's Quest. She's next round, the number 12. And then coming in is Guelo, and she's got a bit of trouble here. Guelo as well. She left the furl late on that reaching sail. It's furled it up now. These boats, the gear's a lot lighter, obviously, than the big maxis. 59 coming in is Denali. She's the one that ran into trouble before. She left everything too late.
It's an interesting little battle group, this one, isn't it? This could go all the way to the finish line, these group of yachts. There's Blackjack.
At the final turning mark Zulu for these big boats, and now it's the bashers on. Waves over the deck, and this breeze will strengthen throughout the afternoon.
Great shots there of exactly what these crews are going through. That swell's fairly decent, and as shippers were saying, that wind is on the nose. It's going to be a big, long night of thump-thump.
Back to URM. They're very untidy at that turning mark. But she likes this windward conditions. The crew have now just got to get the right sail selection and get hunkered down and tough it out tonight. Some of the smaller, middle-sized boats are coming round the first turning mark. Big boat, top left is Kilo 2 that won line honours in this race in 1971. The famous American yachtsman Jim Kilroy skippered her that year, but now owned by Paddy and Keith Borton and Lindsay May on board doing his 48th consecutive Sydney Hobart race. Some of the little boats coming to this turning mark, some of the 45-footers.
And this race is on handicap as well. So you've got the race for the line honours for the Illingworth Trophy, and then you've got the race for the Tattersalls Trophy, which is handicap. So every yacht here has a chance to be the overall winner.
Patriot, number 10 going round. St. Quint, Kim Jagger's boat, number 50. And there's Kilo in the background, just dropping their mizzen sail to go upwind. And the big boat, the white sails, just about to come round the turning mark, is Oroton Drumfire, with the most capped Sydney Hobart woman on board as navigator, Adrian Cahalan, and Stacey Jackson also on board, who skippered Wild Oats 10 to second place 3 years ago. So two highly qualified female sailors there. Now look at Law Connect. She's really loving these conditions. She stepped out to windward of Scallywag. Scallywag tack now. She wouldn't cross Law Connect. So Law Connect now moving into her work very nicely. They'll be very happy with this. You can see the bumpy water. She's a big, heavy, wide boat, thriving in these conditions. 95 there is Zara. Lovely old ketch built in 1974 by the Choi Lee Yard in China on the very first Hobart race.
Skippered by John Griffin.
Yeah. Oh, and here's old Denali, Damien Parks. Boy, they've got a bit on to get this spinnaker down. This is not looking too good for these boys. They've got to try and wind that sail in and then lower the halyard. If they lower the halyard too early, it's going to go in the water and they'll go prawning. But here's the defending champion, Ichiban, behind her Quest. They're just reaching out now to the second turning mark. That's Guelo in the foreground. She was second to Ichiban 2 years ago. You can see the southerly coming up now. A lot of white horses developing. Some of the spectator craft getting a bit of a bumpy ride. But it's Law Connect getting up on the hip of Scallywag.
As they make their way down towards Bondi on the New South Wales coast. We'll take a short break. Back with more of this Rolex Sydney Hobart. So Guelo.
She's had a good start to the year. She's been very solid in early lead-up races. A couple of second placings. Billy Merrington at the helm on his 25th trip to Hobart. He's won line honours but hasn't won the handicap prize yet. Could this be his year? 88 there, that's Scallywag, SHK Scallywag. No picnic up the bow for those boys. Wet and wild. Wet weather gears. Sealed at the neck, sealed at the waist, sealed everywhere. And it's going to get wetter and colder as the day goes on. You can see they've got a small head salon. They're doing it pretty nicely.
And the conditions will get bigger as the day goes on as well. Sort of not a bad time for the crews as they start to settle the boat now, shippers, isn't it? I mean, they've big fuel and relief. They've got out with no damage from the harbour, from the race to get out the heads. And now they can sort of start to bed down and get set.
So if there was any incident in the harbour and a boat wants to absolve themselves of they thought maybe a penalty, they can do a 360-degree turn outside the heads and that will absolve them of any penalty. But they can take the risk and go to Hobart and go to the protest room. But we saw what happened a few years ago with Wild Oats by doing that. But there's Law Connect.
This is looking like a great battle up the front between Scallywag and Law Connect too.
Tony Mutter at the helm, as I said, highly experienced. 6 round-the-world races. Here's Quest, just still reaching. There's Michael Green at the helm. His father, the late Peter Green, former winner. He was on board Pasha in 1970. Mike's won it before.
Guelo alongside. So nice little 2-horse race between these at the moment. And this is back up the front with Law Connect and Scallywag. Law Connect, you might remember from last year, Christian Beck's info track. Before that was Speedboat, Perpetual Loyal with Anthony Bell and Rambler. So a well-credentialed competitor in this year's race, Law Connect under Christian Beck. You're watching Law Connect, beginning that long trek south in the Rolex Sydney Hobart. A magnificent side, settled in and ready for what it does best, just making her way down towards Hobart.
She's already won the race in 2016 as Perpetual Loyal, and that year she did set a race record of 1 day, 13 hours and 31 minutes. That was lowered in 2017 by Comanche to 1 day, 9 hours, but no record this year. Conditions won't be favourable for that. And it looks at this stage, the weather modelling has the maxis finishing in about 2 days, 4 hours. So they've got well outside
Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, well outside the course record.
Scallywag and Law Connect locked in a duel up front at the moment. Here's some of the action. It's not the job you want, the bowman, is it?
Well, you've got to start somewhere as you work your way back, but it's wet and wild. But these blokes are fearless. Terrific job. Now here's a boat, the oldest boat in the race, Solveig. Built in 1950 for the Halverson brothers. Designed, built and sailed by the Halversons. Can you believe it? She won line honours in 1953 and handicap honours in 1954. This marvellous little boat, owned by John Whitfield. They're just putting a reef in the mainsail. There she is in 54, going down the Tassie coast. Skippered by Stan Darling that year, the legendary Stan Darling. The Halversons, through illness, were not aboard.
And the last boat out is the Army's entry. Oh, Gunrunner. It has been a staple of this race. That is the Army's training boat. They use that for development of soldiers, to bring the team together, to instill the Army's values of hard work and integrity and mateship. And good on them. It's the smallest boat, 9.3 metres, Shippers, if I remember right.
That's exactly right. It's a long way to Hobart. A long time to Hobart. Oh, here's some drama. Something's happened to Scallywag. They've blown their headsail or their forestay out. You can see that, this doesn't look too good for Scallywag. There's two boats up the bow. This is certainly handing advantage to Law Connect. Have they broken their inner forestay where the jib was attached to? The jib's disappeared round the side of the mainsail. This looks serious for Scallywag. They have the jib's attached to an inner forestay. They've got the main forestay right out of the bow, but then the jib was set off an inner forestay. You can see that has disappeared now. Has it just... It hasn't broken because the whole forestay is still there. It's the tacking point where it tacks to the deck of the boat has come away. Oh, this is very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. The crew just trying to work out what to do. You can see the roller furler flapping around there. That's quite dangerous because these sails all roll up. They're trying to get another headsail up, which means that they might just set it flying, but this sail has got to come down. They'll have to lower the jib that they did have up. They've pulled the boat away to make it easier on the crew. You can see the mainsail's well eased, so that will push them well to the east or even northeast to get this sail down. They're big, heavy sails. You can see the crew wrestling with them there to get them down. What a disappointment.
Yeah, that was not in the playbook, was it? You were supposed to survive Sydney Heads and turn right and enjoy the trip south.
Well, she's now heading north and even west of north. She's heading the wrong way. Well, we don't like to see that on any boat, but there's Law Connect thriving in the conditions. You can see the breezes up, the white caps are building, 20 knots plus. Now, what are they going to do here on Scallywag? Sail is down. Just looking around for some guidance, I guess. They'd probably go to a storm jib, I would think, which is a lot smaller sail and will certainly impede their progress.
It's such a shame after a great start.
See a couple of boys working up the bow, the two at the front, looking to something on the deck to see what's happened there.
All right, let's go to Jimmy Spittle.
Well, it may not be a race record on the line, but I think we must have seen a record for the entire fleet exiting the harbour. We just had the lads from the Army on the mighty Gunrunner just be last round the mark. But, man, that was just unbelievable how quickly the entire fleet exited the harbour.
Yeah, agree. That was fast, Jimmy. Quite incredible. How do you read the conditions out there, Jimmy?
Very, very bumpy, Mark. I think there will be more than a handful of crew that will be second-guessing that extra helping of lunch yesterday as they go into the evening.
Yeah, we're seeing a bit of carnage already. Jimmy, thanks very much. So Scallywag battling out and working out what to do. They've turned back on course.
Well, I think they had to go north to take the load off the boat, and they had to try and get the boat as flat as they could to get the sail back on board. They're now tracking, as you say, more on course, but it's going to take a long while to get that sail up. There's 27. That's Speedwell. That's Wendy Tuck and Campbell Jeeves, one of the two-handers. Highly fancy. Little boat for two-handers, and full marks to these guys. They've done a tremendous job to get to the starting line. All these short-handed boats, and they look nicely snug down.
17 two-handers racing for the first time. It's two-man crew all the way to Hobart. Obviously, it'll take them a good few days to get there, but just the two of them, it's a big challenge.
There's Blackjack now. It's a race in two for the line honours, and I think the first part of the race will fancy Law Connect in these heavier conditions. The transitions and the tricky conditions down the Tasmanian east coast, it could come into play for Blackjack. So I would not like to put any money on who's going to win this race for the line honours. It's a race that is not straightforward by any means. The Yacht Club of Monaco flag at the back of Blackjack, although a lot of the crew are from Queensland.
So the fleet, the leaders, just making their way down towards Bondi on the New South Wales coast. There'll be plenty of people there and out on the cliffs taking a look at this start of the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. We'll be back with more racing right after this break. Wow, what an amazing shot of this fleet as they make their way down the coast of New South Wales and what is going to be a very, very long trip. Of course, they're all chasing Law Connect and Scallywag. Scallywag, Pete, who've been through some unexpected dramas, but that's the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
Yes, it is. You can see them trying to get the old sail down, and that orange sail, that's their storm jib. So it'll be a very tiny sail, which will mean the boat is underpowered this afternoon. It wouldn't be their ideal sail, but nonetheless they'll try and get a head sail up there. If they can get to lighter winds, they'll be okay, because they can set their sail off the main forestay. But it's just that inner forestay seems to have problems with, and what a disappointment so early in the race.
It's a tough job at any time, but when your workplace is bouncing up and down a couple of metres and you're being showered by salt water, it's just incredible what these crews do and what they go through.
Okay, and here's Solveig, one of the 7 previous winners in this race. He's going to battle it out. He's got a little jib on, mainsail reef down.
That's going to be a busy couple of days, isn't it?
One of very few boats that's won line honours and a handicap in separate years.
Just beautiful boat, shippers. I could watch that all day. That's just gorgeous.
North Head in the background, standing out to sea to the turning mark. She's nicely snug down for the next 24 hours or so.
What line honours in 53, overall in 54. Incredible.
Boat was in Hawaii for a long while. It's been brought back to Australia, and here she is doing the race all those years later. And here's Still on Scallywag. They're still trying to work on this storm jib, that orange storm jib. That'll be the next sail up. They're trying to clear halyards. You can see the boys looking aloft and trying to make sure all the halyards are clear so they can hoist this sail.
See, they would not have expected to be this busy this soon.
No, it won't be an ideal sail for these conditions. There's David Witt at the helm. Be massively disappointed after a great run down the harbour.
And you can see there what Jimmy Spitter was saying to us about just how choppy it is out there outside Sydney Heads at the moment. It's tough going. The hard work still going on board Scallywag. They're trying to get things sorted, trying to get one of those sails back up, and there behind them is the fleet for this 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Quite an amazing sight. They're all heading to Hobart. It'll take them more than 2 days. Even the fastest don't expect to be there before afternoon on Tuesday at best. But of course, we'll keep you across that. And you've got the yacht tracker to watch as well on the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, the race website.
The highly fancied Whisper from David Griffith, 5th 2 years ago. But there's the race leader. She's really stepping out now, Law Connect. She's well ahead of Blackjack and obviously well ahead of SHK Scallywag, who suffered those early dramas. Nice punchy breeze now, 18, 20 knots perhaps. Good seaway building up, but the sea will get a bit rougher as they get further to the east because there'll be a current that's running to the north, and to the south, sorry, which the boats will want to get into the current, but it'll be adverse to the wind, so the waves will stand up and make it pretty bumpy. But it'll give a huge advantage. If you can get a 1 or 2 knot current, it'll be a big bonus to you.
Zen,
yep. She's another TP52. We saw her earlier. She won the Cabbage Tree race. She beat Guaylo and Ichiban. A couple of previous Hobart winners on her. Sean Kirkjian probably at the helm. Shane Guanario, the sail trimmer and in charge of sails on board. But here we go, Law Connect. Some of the brave spectator fleet still following her. Should be a couple of miles now well east of South Head.
And making good pace as well.
And looking great. The sails look absolutely perfect. Trimmed very well in the distance. Poor old Scallywag still without a headsail. And that's the distance. That's Blackjack next, slightly to leeward. And here they are still on Scallywag, still trying to sort this out. Up and down she goes, but not much forward progress, unfortunately.
Yeah, no rest for the Scallywag crew, that's for sure.
84, that's Oscana. She is from Tasmania. Skippered by Michael Pritchard. She's the former winner of Victoire. She won in 2013. He's a canting keeler as well. They moved the keel on her. She's got a very strong Hobart crew to push her to the home port.
And that's the shot now, looking from North Head, looking down towards where this fleet is headed down to the south and towards Hobart.
That's the little gun runner.
I reckon that's gun runner. Good on you, gun runner. The Australian Army's entry full of our serving troops who are on board there, enjoying a bit of a sailing experience, a bit of team building. Maritimo now.
Mike Hughes from Western Australia on board, one of Australia's great yachtsmen, Admiral's Cup winner, based out of the Fremantle fire station. So he's got all his mates watching from Fremantle. As Maritimo looks nicely snug down, and here we are back with Law Connect, the race leader. You can see the rudder there. She's got two rudders. That's the second rudder to windward there. She would be, main rudder would be there to the left, of course, and then the keel as well. You can see the orange keel, that big canting keel is pushed out.
Gee.
And there's a centreboard, the blue centreboard that they will put down when she's on the other tack. She's got a lot of moving parts.
What's incredible, they're amazing, aren't they? And we should, when you talk about the canting keel, hydraulically that keel is pushed from side to side as required to balance up the boat and to give it as much speed as they can get out of it.
So by doing that, they can have the a lighter hull. But here's an interesting boat. Here's an Eora. This is Rupert Henry's two-hander, a brand new boat. Not the prettiest looking boat, I would have to say, but he is a very experienced sailor, Rupert Henry, and his crew, Greg O'Shea. They used to, Rupert used to own Whisper, that won the two-handed Melbourne Osaka race. This is the latest Class 40 out of France. As soon as they get running and reaching conditions, that boat would take off like a rocket.
It is one of the favourites, isn't it? The two-handed race.
It is one of the favourites, yep. We feature back on Law Connect. Look at those sails. They just looked absolutely perfect. Margaret Rintoul, first Hobart race, the Frères 61. Built for Stan Edwards originally. All these boats were Margaret Rintoul. His father owned the original Margaret Rintoul that won Line Honours in 1950. But here's the latest boat now racing out of Melbourne. She's got a pretty interesting crew on board. Mark Turnbull on board, an Olympic gold medalist from Sydney in the year 2000. She's a beautiful Frères design.
And there are a lot of females racing this year. 87 women out in the fleet in this Sydney Hobart race.
It was a sport once considered a man's domain, but it took just 1 year for two daring women to make their mark and pave the way for female participation in the annual Sydney Hobart. Jane Tate and Dagmar O'Brien both set sail aboard their husbands' yachts Active and Quinella in 1946. While Quinella was ultimately forced to retire, Active placed 8th overall. And Tate became the first woman to start and finish the gruelling 628 nautical mile journey from Sydney Harbour to Hobart's Constitution Dock. This year marks the 75th that women will set sail in what's considered one of the world's toughest ocean yacht races, with 6 female skippers to vie for the Jane Tate Memorial Trophy.
Let's to recognise that first female skipper that comes into Hobart. Every one of the ladies that I speak to would love to have their name on that trophy.
Competing alongside the next generation, setting sail in her first official Hobart, 19-year-old Tasmanian Anne Stewart.
Last year I did deliver the boat to Sydney and then unfortunately had to fly back and was in Sydney when it was cancelled, so it was very devastating for me.
Now a year later, she's preparing to contest the Tattersall Cup aboard Midnight Rambler.
I'm really nervous, but I'm also really excited.
Anne is a top sailor, very tough young girl. She does a job called the pit, a lot of central planning going on and almost a central nervous system of the boat, and does it superbly.
As sailing looks forward to the next 75.
The latest batch of new recruits, new members to the CYCA, 50% of them were female. So we're seeing a real adjustment in the gender demographic of the club.
It's great for the future of sailing. They're really promoting females in the sport.
Yeah, it's a great story, isn't it? And Ed Salters was talking about Anne getting around the pit. He said she's just all over it. She is just dynamite moving around that pit and getting things organised. So hopefully she will have a great first Sydney Hobart experience as we take a look at Blackjack.
Just see in the distance, Scallywag. She's now got the storm jib up, that orange storm jib. She'll pop out the back of Blackjack at the moment. But talking about the women in sailing, Wendy Tuck. Oh, there she is. You can see that tiny headsail on her now.
And you see the difference in sail space. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's not a sail she wants to have up. She'd need the breeze to be up to about 35 knots to have that working efficiently. But here's Oroton Drumfire, Adrian Cahalan and Stacey Jackson, two of our best women sailors on board. Now the fleet's starting to stretch out here. And they're all hard on the wind, and it'll be a day for the boats that like windward work to come to the fore. And a lot of history spread amongst the fleet here. Look at Love and War. She going for history to become the first boat to win it 4 times. And on board, Simon Kurtz, the son of the late Peter Kurtz, but also on board Martin Tomaszewski, whose grandfather was Jack Earl, one of the founding fathers of this great race. So here we are with Highly Sprung. She was Mark Spring, who purchased the boat in 2018. She was placed 44th in 2019. He was the Ocean Racing Rookie of the Year.
So now 40 minutes into this race, and we've got the whole fleet outside Sydney Heads. You can see back behind them when we take the wider shot, the north and the south head of Sydney Harbor. And they are outside now, and boy, some have been doing it harder than others. The crew here on Scallywag have been working hard. We're going to take a quick break. We're back with more from the Rolex Sydney Hobart and all the action from outside Sydney Heads. Stay with us. It's a great sight, isn't it? There's those 89 yachts now out of Sydney Heads. That's north head to the right and south head to the left as we look back.
It's amazing how quickly they spread out, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, just not even an hour after the start, they're already well spread.
Yeah, and shippers, everyone has their own plan about how they want to attack this race, where they want to go into the coast or well off the coast, and everyone else is in between.
Yes, I think the main weather modelling will take them well off the coast today. They'll stand out on starboard before they tack over to port. Firstly, to get some current, but also good wind direction. But it's a big wrestle for those boys to get those big, heavy sails sorted out. You can see them, boys working overtime in tough conditions, boats up and down, waves coming over them. And you can see that storm jib. It's such a small sail, but it's still giving momentum, but not perfect momentum.
Which we'd normally see it in extreme conditions.
Yes, the storm jib would be up in winds of probably 35 knots. It's nowhere near that, and it's not forecast to get that strong. But already you can see that the white caps are there, and there's a good spread of the fleet. They'll be just lucky that they've been able to get a headsail up and get going. That'll have to get them going through the night, I think, although they're going to try and it looks like they might be trying to reattach the jib or not, or they're just trying to fold it up and get it bagged so they can get it below.
And shippers, as you know from your 31 of these races, you've got so much energy in your couple of days on board. Those guys have been working hard so early on. They'll be tired by the time they get to Hobart.
Well, talking about energy on board, here's Kayamai, father and son combination. Michael Bell and his son Matt. It's one of the biggest two-handers in the fleet. And they look pretty nicely snug down and ready to get into the tough condions.
Matt's first Hobart as well.
Yeah, his father, well known as Zappa, on his 13th trip to Hobart. He's America's Cup, Admiral's Cup yachtsman. And it's a great experience, he said, for his son, who has done very little yachting, to be able to go to Hobart with his highly experienced father.
A great view as the fleet spreads out now and they start to get themselves settled for this long trip to Hobart. Expected to arrive, the winner, probably sometime Tuesday afternoon. But as you can see, there is a lot can go wrong between now and then, and it's already gone wrong for the crew on side along onboard Scallywag. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll have you back just shortly with the rest of the Rolex Sydney Hobart. And back with the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. Scallywag crew working overtime from the moment they came out Sydney Heads and things started to go wrong. Had a forward stay rupture, and it's just been tough going from then on.
Looks as though they're trying to reattach the jib that they did have up. And that was the problem area, the tack area where it joins the hull of the boat, and they're reattaching it. So maybe, just maybe, they've been able to fix the problem, and they might be able to get this sail up again, which would be great news for them, because at the moment they've got that very small storm jib on. Still making good progress, but certainly not at maximum speed.
That is the incredible job they're doing up the front, isn't it? You think about the weight those group of guys are trying to move in that sail, and then to have that workspace to work in where it's bouncing up and down a couple of metres and you're getting hammered with sea spray. Incredible. You're just trying to hang on.
Just trying to arrange the halyards to make sure that it's clear so they can hoist, and that's the spread of the fleet, the bulk of the fleet there already. A lot of distance between a lot of boats. But it's a day for boats that want to go to windward. The bigger, heavier boats will be absolutely thriving in these conditions.
Yeah, and after all the chaos of Sydney Harbour, they do start to spread out now and find their way. And and find their spot in the fleet. Of course, the bigger boat's going to the front.
That's Flying Cloud. She's a Beneteau First 40, skippered by George Martin from the Middle Harbour Yacht Club.
The national representation is great this year too. There are yachts from all over the country. Good turnout from Tassie, says South Australians, a lot of Queenslanders, and of course some New South Wales, plenty of Victorians. Good national turnout.
King Billy in the foreground, and in the background Rev. Two great competitors for the Hobart race. Kevin Whelan on Rev, one of the most popular members of the CYCs in the performance handicap division. But gee, this is a big early lead to Law Connect. She is motoring in these conditions.
They just look so set and stable, shippers, don't they?
She's built for this, as I said earlier. Big wide boat. You can see how narrow Blackjack is by comparison. She's just got to hang in there tonight and get through the night unscathed, and then let the rest play out. But you can see her canting curled as well. Here's Zara, as we saw her earlier. They look quite comfortable sitting in the cockpit.
Break out the cheese and bickies.
Yeah, well, it'd be wet biscuits. But she's ploughing away south and on her first trip. It's a lonely ocean out there already.
Yes, and you do get an idea now, don't you, of what lies ahead. And of course, the treacherous Bass Strait still to come.
Yes, the breeze will moderate late tomorrow, I think, and it could be a relatively easy passage across the strait. But here's Blackjack, Mark Bradford at the helm. A really strong crew. They're just sitting on the rail to add extra stability. Still punching out on starboard. The big test will become when they tack onto port. 75 Rogue Wave. Little two-hander. Kevin Lepoitevin and Darryl Gregg. Raced fully crewed 2019 and placed 115th overall. So I don't think she's one of the favourites, but good on them. Two-handers.
It's a courageous thing, isn't it, to go down to Hobart as a two-handed crew. That's amazing. There are 17 of them in this year's race, the first time they've been a part of the race, which is great to see. And there was a lot of interest, shippers, wasn't there? There's been great support for the two-handers.
Absolutely. Everyone's very thrilled to see them out there. They're a little boat here is Enchantress from South Australia. She's come up many times for this race. She arrived last year, 5 minutes before the race was cancelled. She sailed all the way up from South Australia, but she's back this year. Very popular competitor. Skippered by John Willoughby, a local design by John Muirhead on her 7th trip to Hobart. But there's the boat that's holding sway.
It's a big jump to the other end of the fleet, isn't it, eh?
Let's just see how comfortable she looks. She's just nicely balanced in this seaway.
30 metres of yacht will do that for you, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Hell's bells.
Wow, hell's bells indeed. Another two-hander. All these two-handers have nicely snugged down with their sails. She's got a reef in the mainsail.
It's Lincoln Dews and Andrew Scott on Hell's Bells.
These boats do have autopilot, so if someone wants to trim the sail and the other crew's down sleeping, you can put the autopilot on there. Allowed to use autopilots in this race, which they'd have to really to be able to go the distance.
There's Bondi Beach, so the leaders just making their way towards or past Bondi Beach now to give you an idea of where they are in relation to Sydney. And from the cliffs of Bondi, they'll be watching and they'll be able to see these leaders make their way down. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with you in just a moment. You're watching the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. ...628 nautical miles ahead of them to Hobart, around about 1,100 kilometres. And you look at the fleet for this year's Rolex Sydney Hobart, and the leader out in front, majestic and magnificent. Wow, Law Connect looking beautiful at the moment as they head down past Bondi Beach on the coast of New South Wales and powering south at the moment. The big Super Maxis, these 30-metre incredible yachts, moving faster than the rest of the fleet as they start to spread their wings and just start to move down.
Here's Love and War, as I said earlier, looking to make history to win this race for the 4th time Stephen McCallum at the helm, one of Tasmania's great yachtsmen, on his 25th Hobart race, and that's the shot on the right in 1974 where she stormed up the Derwent River to win the first of her 3 races. Highly experienced crew under Simon Kurtz, navigator Joe Earl, Simon's son Philip on board as well, and really enjoying these conditions. Just lovely timber boat built in 1973 for the late Peter Kurtz.
Compare them to the crew on Scallywag. Scallywag, they're getting pounded and working as hard as they can, and this crew are just enjoying the ride at the moment. That's lovely.
David Powey's on board. He won the race on Piccolo in 1976, so a lot of history in this boat.
And as we talk about the history too, the other exciting thing is the number of young sailors coming in, the number of 18-year-olds. I think we've got 3 18-year-olds, the minimum age to be a part of this race, all out there in this fleet. So there is a new generation coming through as well, which is exciting for the sport too. There's Blackjack, and beyond them Scallywag, which you can see now has that orange storm sail up after terrible troubles with their sails earlier on.
A couple of the smaller boats toughing it out. 28 there is Wax Lyrical, Les Goodrich's boat from the CYC. Always does very well in the PHS division, which he won in 2018 and won his division in 2019. Another CYC member. And that's the fleet looking back towards the heads. Sort of grey, gloomy day now on the building as the sou'easter comes through, and that, you can just see how small that jib is on Scallywag. Lunar Blue. Another one of the Beneteau range of boats.
And Chip, it's one of the great things now is being able to follow the progress of these 89 yachts. You can do that on the Yacht Tracker at the Cruising Yacht Club's race site. So if you go to Rolex Sydney Hobart website, find the Yacht Tracker, and it's just enthralling to watch them go down the coast. And you'll get updates, of course, on 7 News and across Sunrise. But the Yacht Tracker is the best way. That's the Yacht Tracker as it looks at the moment. You see Law Connect out in front there as they head now beyond Bondi down towards Bronte and Clovelly, and the rest of the fleet making their way outside the heads as well. So you can check the Yacht Tracker online right through to the last yacht gets in, which will probably be Gun Runner. That's the race updates for you. Rolex Sydney Hobart.com is where to find the Yacht Tracker. Fantastic way to keep in touch 24 hours a day with where these yachts are in this race. Of course, 7 News and Sunrise will keep you up to date as well.
Interesting thing to note here is that all boats are still on starboard tack going out to sea to get the southbound current. As I said earlier, the waves might be a bit more bouncy, but I think they'll get the big advantage from the current, and no one's really tacked onto port yet. As we have a look at Mako, she's in the PHS division, the Sydney 40, and this is on a second trip to Hobart, skippered by Phil O'Rourke from the Newcastle Cruising Yacht Club. So not many entries from there, but she's one of them, and again looks nicely snug down and doing a pretty nice job in these reasonably tough conditions. It's pretty good sailing breeze, really. It's at the moment it's not extreme by any means, but that's the lead that Law Connect stepped out from Blackjack, and it's a massive early lead, and not even into an hour of racing, and she's really got a commanding position at the front of the fleet.
Yeah, 57 minutes down now, and Christian Beck will be very happy with the way Law Connect is tracking.
Blink from Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Mark Gorbatov, a Beneteau First 40, and he's a guy that looks after your eyes. What's that called? Ophthalmic surgeon, is that right?
Ophthalmologist, optometrist, one of those.
Yeah, hence the name Blink, I think. So, there you go, up and down she goes. A bit of blinking there, but there's the grey scene as the rain is forecast this afternoon, as this breeze will freshen to 24 to 28 knots. But gee, you'd be pretty happy if you're the boys on Law Connect.
Yeah. Christian Beck, that's exactly where he wants to be, isn't it? Out in front and controlling the race.
There's Patriot from the Sandringham Yacht Club in Victoria, Jason Close. Did very, very well in 2019. He finished 9th overall after breaking a rudder in 2018.
Great club at Sandringham too. They always send us plenty of entries for the Rolex Sydney Hobart. Law Connect. That canting keel is amazing to see, isn't it? That's sitting so high in the water right now.
The boat just looks so comfortable. The sails look good. She's just got a beautiful motion through the seaway. See, she's already got big reef lines in the mainsail, should they have to reef.
Yeah, so looking good. So Law Connect leads them, and it's been a magnificent start. Hope you've enjoyed it wherever you're watching from around Australia, around the world. Peter Shipway, thank you to you, and of course to Jimmy Spittle, who's joined us as well. Great to have one of Australia's great sailors on board with us. More updates, 7 News for you tonight. We'll tell you exactly where they are, and Sunrise in the morning to get you up to date first thing in the morning. And don't forget the Yacht Tracker as well. It has been a magnificent start, one of the great ones, a big night ahead of them, that big southerly coming in. But on behalf of all our crew, hope you've enjoyed this start of the 76th Rolex Sydney Hobart. We'll see you soon.